let's get started as people join in. So welcome everyone to the Meshery development call. Today is 4th of August and we have some items listed here today. So it's going to be a good meeting. So before we get started, is there someone new on the call?
Hi, I am new to the Meshery development.
Hi Anshuman, would you like to introduce yourself to the community?
Okay, so hello everyone, and my name is Anshuman, and I am currently pursuing my BTech from Indraprastha Engineering College, and I am learning front end and back end development, and I want to explore in this field more. So I joined this open source platform so that I can enhance my skills.
Sounds good. Amazing. Thank you for introducing Anshuman. I'm sure you'll find a lot of interesting projects to work on here.
Yes.
You already got a nickname, it seems. Anshuman the man.
Yeah, actually, it's Anshuman. The double A at the end of mine, but it's having single A, I think, at the last.
Yes.
Yep.
It's single A only.
I can relate. Like everywhere there is a duplicate name. The real.
So many Abhisheks and so many Anshu.
A wins.
All right.
We have like 10 Adityas.
Yeah. All different permutations of Adityas. All right. Anybody else new on the call?
That's right. There's only one Piyush. That's it, man. You can't replicate that guy. Cool. I don't know that there are any other newcomers. So Anshuman, the man, is the winner today. Nice to meet you, Anshuman. Thanks for jumping in.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was nice of you to introduce in Slack too. That's always it's really nice. It's just more people read that than you know.
Yes.
All right. So let's move on to today's agenda. First up, we have a small announcement that, as you might be knowing, Meshery recently became adopted into the CNCF. So Meshery is a CNCF project right now. So in CNCF Cloud Native community groups, Meshery has a community. So this is pretty new. So we'll have all the event details and all the other stuff that comes up with this community. And you can RSVP for events, learn about the upcoming events and all those stuff. So we are still exploring this tool. So we will be adding more stuff here. So you can join this community by going through this link and joining. So yeah, that's it. We also have one for service mesh performance, which is one of the other projects that we have been working on. So you can also find that in the CNCF community groups. All right. We also have planned a session this month with the CNCF student groups. So it's also a CNCF community group. And I'm not sure where I will find it, but
but we'll send out some
Yeah.
links.
yeah, so we'll be having a scheduling a session with the CNCF students group. So most of us, we have a lot of student representatives in the layer 5 community. So it should be a good session. So stay tuned for that. Moving on to the next item, Barik, would you like to take it from here?
Oh yeah, sure. Let me share my screen.
Sure.
Yep. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, hello everyone. Good morning or good night. So my name is Barik, and I am going to show you about the issue that I've been working on last week actually. So it is about the blocking for data fetching for Grafana or Prometheus. So so here's the thing. So you can start your Meshery server and then go to a settings route. And if your Grafana or Prometheus are not configured, it will keep on fetching the data. So you see, in my computer, I haven't set up my Grafana or Prometheus, but every time I reload the page, it will keep on fetching the data from them. Yeah, basically. So what we want to do is that we want to check whether this Grafana or Prometheus have been configured, and then if it has been configured, then we'll fetch the data accordingly. Yep. So that's one. So yeah. So and then moving on to the next issue that I want to talk about is that I've been working on the subscription for performance result just to try and dip my hands dirty in the GraphQL environment in the Meshery. So again, this yep. So so originally the issue was about creating the subscription resolver for performance result, but then when I looked into it more, it was a bigger issue than it originally was. So instead of creating it directly into a subscription, I firstly do the query, GraphQL query for the performance result. Yeah. So there was the initial stage, and then there will be a later more stage to it. For example, creating the subscription, and then after that, after finishing all with the backend stuff, and then you can move into the front end and create the integration between the front end and the back end using React Relay. Oh, basically like that. So this issue consists of multiple stages that it has not been thought before. Yeah. So this is the GraphQL resolver that I've created for performance result. So you just input the ID as a parameter, then you'll get the Meshery ID, name, mesh, performance profile, etc. Yep. So yeah, so this is the data that we are fetching from the mesh sync, and yeah, so this is the issue that I want to talk about actually, some of the issue. So the model that generated from the GraphQL does not really connect with the protobuf from the mesh sync. So because we define the mesh sync model in the mesh sync repository using the protobuf, and then we recreate this model using GraphQL schema for ourselves. This is somehow like not really an efficient way to do it, because you create this is basically the same kind of model, but then you create it multiple times. So I'm not really sure about it. So yeah, that's all from me.
Yeah. Nice. Barik, do you, so nice. That's great. You covered two issues. The first issue, just to clarify, the user experience improvement that you made there, that didn't have anything to do with GraphQL. Is that right? Like how you enhanced it?
Yep, that's all front end stuff.
Okay. Good. And maybe, you know what, actually, looking at the long list of topics, maybe I was going to take people through what you've done, but but since we have a lot of topics, maybe I won't. But good. So Barik, yesterday we were on with, well, let's see, we were on with an engineer from Intel who is using Meshery, and they are quite into the initiatives here. They're quite interested into service mesh performance as a specification, and Meshery as a tool to help them study the behavior of cloud native, of microservices, of cloud native software on their hardware, not just their chips, but other things. So they're really interested. And so we spent quite a bit of time on a call yesterday trying to help make sure that Meshery is running and doing what they wanted to do. And one of the things that was popping up in our face during our session was these notifications that you just blocked with Grafana and Prometheus. So that's that, like, even though in concept it's a fairly small change, it's impactful to the experience. Because as a user, if all of you have used Meshery, or if you haven't, you'll eventually see that it'll use toaster notifications to let you know what's going on. And when you get a red colored toaster notification, you know, it's unnerving because there's an issue somewhere, and, like, you know, half the time you can't figure out how to fix it. So that's great. That was an aberrant notification, something that we didn't need. The second one, the GraphQL resolver, yeah, I think you're right that, let me pull up this screen real quick to give everyone context, because I think this context, well, helps for newcomers, but also helps to keep everyone else here on the same page. So you're looking at another user experience enhancement, but one that requires a much more significant investment in terms of code and use of GraphQL as a technology. So today, if someone goes in and runs a performance test, when they're done running the test, and they either get results and they can look at them and great, and they're done, they click away. Fortunately now, like, I think we're getting that for the incremental number here. That's not facilitated through a subscription, though, through a GraphQL subscription, to just, like, listen for the total count and be notified, you know, be pushed that total count. This is in part what you're working toward, to make sure that on this UI and a couple of other UIs that just happens. My understanding, if I recall, like, there's a callback that has been written into the UI here to, instead of forcing the user to refresh to get that new number, that we're doing a callback. And so we're sort of doing a poor man's subscription by occasionally, you know, requesting more data. So you're right, in order to get a subscription going for GraphQL, you, like, logically, and as you step into doing this for the first time, like, it's a little bit easier just to write a get query to query for the data that you need to then show it. And then you can say, well, great, let's turn that into a subscription. And now we can just, you know, have the UI listening for that new info. And as you dig into it even further, the thing that you're identifying is that there's the way that the information, the performance information, is characterized and captured. There's a fair bit of detail. There's analysis that goes on. There's information about how long you were running the test and how intensely and what was the statistical averages, and et cetera. Well, that definition, those details are really what comprise the service mesh performance specification, SMP. And this specification, like Barik, like you were just saying, the core, specs are, I was going to say a bit dry and boring, but they're quite important. And the crux of what the spec is at the moment is a set of protobufs, a set of protos. And they discretely define all of this information. Those protos define a way of capturing that info. And so what you're acknowledging and kind of identifying is that there are discrepancies between how the protos define it and how it's being captured in and persisted in Meshery. You're right that we want to rectify that. We want to use service mesh performance protos as the source of truth, or like as the thing, the way to implement. And so just for familiarity with everyone else, the other project that we've just donated to the CNCF, Service Mesh Performance, it's the specification. It's not just the protos, there's some other activities. As a matter of fact, you all should go to that community meeting. There's a number of things to be involved with, work with Intel with, work with Red Hat with, there's a bunch of people involved. These protos are the crux of it. These are a decent stab. Like the spec is incomplete, is in part what I'm saying, but we need to try to represent all of what the spec defines in Meshery. You don't have to swallow all of that in one go, Barik. But did what I said, did it just regurgitate what you were saying? Does that help reinforce your understanding a bit? So it's not exact. So mesh sync is sort of an aside, like mesh sync is, facilitates discovery of things that are going on in Kubernetes. But really it's the service mesh performance protos that we need to ultimately align to. And that may take any number of PRs to get there. Barik, did that help?
Yep. Thanks, Lee.
Yeah, good. I hope that you're not placating me with, yeah, that's good. That helps, thanks. But hopefully it helps reinforce it. Like there's a Red Hatter, a principal engineer who is looking at those specs and trying to make sure that they're correct. So we'll have to get you introduced as they do that, so.
And one more thing is, currently what we are installing Prometheus in the add-on which is there. That is not a full-fledged Prometheus, so that doesn't have node exporter. So, and I just discovered that if you install a standalone Prometheus with their Prometheus chat, Kiali can able to access it with the required field. So it is not really necessary to install it from the add-on of ISTO.
So not that we can't give a rip about Kiali here, but to your point, Samir, if we don't have the node exporter, there are a number of additional metrics that Meshery would like to collect that it won't be able to.
Yeah. So why I'm telling is, like, in the UI now we are focused on installing it from ISTO add-on. But if you want to leverage the other add-ons from the ISTO also, instead of installing the Prometheus add-on from ISTO, we can also use that. So that is why I gave the Kiali example. But yes, so we should make it more generic, installing the Prometheus in Grafana.
Let's take a note on that. Samir, you're correct. And we need to support the ability to either connect to or maybe deploy a standalone Prometheus that has a node exporter. Like it's important, and when someone runs a performance test today, Meshery will look for a node exporter. It wants to pull in that data. So let's take it.
So this Grafana and full-fledged Prometheus is there in QProm stack from the community, Prometheus community. So that gives almost everything, and it has a capability to add in Thanos also.
Yeah. Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Barik. Any other comments before we move to the next item? All right. Ashish or Rudraksh, would any of you like to present this next item?
Okay, I'll talk about it. So basically, to give a little context, we are working on incorporating a functionality inside of Meshery that can help us to generate schemas and definitions, which would be used by different Meshery adapters. So I'll just quickly share my screen, and it's still a work in progress. Okay, so basically, there will be two functions. One would be get from manifest and one would be get from Helm. I haven't yet written the get from Helm function, but the get from manifest function is working. I'm still confused about the naming convention. So currently I've named the package as manifest. So that's a different issue. We can change the names later. So basically this get from manifest function is the one which would be called via different adapters when they would want schemas and definitions for particular resources. So as parameters, they'll have to give the URL. It's the responsibility of the adapter to give the URL from where we have to fetch the manifest from which we would generate the schemas and definitions. It also has to give the resource. There are currently 3 resource types: service mesh, Kubernetes, and Meshery, and different definitions would be produced for different resource types. And then the user also have to give the user, in this case is Meshery adapter, Meshery adapters. So it also has to give the config, which would contain the name of the service mesh and the service mesh version, and in return it will just return the component struct, which is just slice of schemas and definitions. So currently I have I'm just calling this function from the main.go to just demo, and I'm just hitting this URL for a specific version. So if I, for example, if I want to see the first definition that was generated, okay, so few fields are missing here. I had doubts, and I'll clear these doubts up. For example, creation timestamp is null and the Kate API version is empty right now. I'll clear up with Utkarsh and fill these up. Other than that, we have definitions and we can also have schemas. So both of these things would be inside the component. So yeah, this is the schema. So yeah, basically, currently I have only one function for get from manifest. If the user wants to give produce it from Helm charts, so that the user can also give URL for that. I haven't written this function yet, but I'll get it done by tomorrow. So, if anyone has any comments on how I should rename the package, or if anyone wants to see how it's working functionally or anything else, I would love to have comments.
Ashish, does Meshkit already have it should already have the facility to retrieve a manifest?
Yeah, that's what I'm, you're talking about this read file source function.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already using it.
Oh, I see. That is from, oh, okay. Oh, is that what the utils dot means?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah. Do we know? Yeah. There's someone might want to share the spreadsheet where you guys are tracking the mechanisms. I was just about to ask, like, which adapters we think we're going to, which service meshes we will collect manifests from versus which ones we will collect Helm charts from. And then I realized that's in the spreadsheet. So maybe you could share it in chat afterwards. Or Shaitan beat you to it. Cool, thanks. That'll everybody can look at the spreadsheet if they want. That'll answer the questions. Ashish, I'm excited to see this. Is really important. Anybody else have feedback for Ashish?
And also, I'm
Ashish,
not using the JQ thing. I'm actually, Rudraksh was right. It was too dumb of me to use JQ, and I can just unmarshal Marshall from struct. So that's why that day I was speechless when he said, "Why are you using JQ?" So because I realized it was a very, very dumb move.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why other people are there to point out things like that. But actually, I wouldn't necessarily phrase it like that. I would say, hey, if you were looking at transition systems, the current implementation is using JQ. Hey, is there a JQ available natively? Like, I don't know. It makes sense that you arrived at that. Anyway, I'm good. Last question. Of the changes that you're doing now, are any of those? Some of those are being done in Meshkit, and some of those are being done as what will be a standard implementation in like the adapters themselves.
Right now, I haven't added anything in the adapters because adapters are just going to consume this. So once we are sure about this is how we're going to do it inside of the mesh kit, we can go ahead and start working on the adapters.
Thank you, Ashish. Next up, we have Nitish. Nitish has a couple of items. Nitish, would you like to start?
Yeah. Okay.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay, so actually the first thing that I wanted to discuss was like right now the configuration for while developing Meshery UI, like we are using NodeMon. We were actually using NodeMon for like basically what it does is that we actually have a proxy on top of the next normal Next.js, so next development server, so that like whenever whenever a request is it's supposed to be routed to the backend, then it just like if there is a request that's starting with the /API, then it's supposed to be routed to 9081 in case of development. So for that we were actually using a proxy, but while actually implementing the proxy, like we were actually using NodeMon on top of a Next.js server. So what it was actually doing was for each and every change that has been made to the any JS files in the context, like it will actually rebuild the whole UI. But actually, if we are using Next.js server, like we all know that like there is it gives us instant feedback, like yeah, that hot module replacement thing. So that was not like we were not able to leverage it because we were using this NodeMon thing on top of it. So actually, I have just removed like I believe that was. I mean, like I don't think I'm not sure why people have done that. Like it's been that change was like that thing was built 2 years before, so not sure why that was written that way. But I have right now changed it to Node. So as a result of that, like right now, if we just make a change in any UI. So we would actually get the instant feedback as we would actually get when we are using the normal normal Next.js server. So that is one thing that I have changed right now. Yeah, and apart from this, like from this, I will move on to the updates that I have made to connection wizard. So basically, like from the last time, like I haven't made much of the updates in this case. I've just been working on the stylings and trying to refactor the code so that people can start contributing to it. So something like the changes that I've made right now is that I have added the button over here for basically we were actually experimenting with which one to go with, but right now this is what we have. But definitely we could use some help or suggestions, like if you have a better icon or something like that. But yeah, and so actually some alignment issues were fixed. Like I don't think you would be able to notice it. Like yeah, so those things. And yeah, over here, like when if people were there last time I demoed this thing, they would have noticed that the styling of the adapters page would have been, I mean, like this was actually in the center of the page, but right now I've moved it to the left side. But I actually think like it has to be much closer to this thing so that it looks like they both are actually a single component. Yeah, so that is something. And I've also added the advanced settings button, which the functionality of this is that right, it would actually take us to the settings hash metrics page. So in case like if they want to configure further in the context of Meshery adapters, then they can click on it and it will navigate them over there. So the same I have done for metrics as well. It will also take them to the settings hash metrics page. Apart from that, I don't think I have made any other change. So actually, we would actually be releasing this sooner, and we would be waiting for the feedback from the users, and we would be building in like going from there. Yeah, this is the update that I wanted to share. Yeah, and still I'm not able to, like, I haven't troubleshooted this machine PC, so it's not working right now. Yep, that's it.
Any feedback here? People, so this is a new user interface that has yet to be exposed, but I expect this week, today, tomorrow, it will start to pop up in the Edge release. One thing to note is that Abhi, who's on the phone, actually, since the other Abhishek Kumar isn't here today, he gets to be Abhishek Kumar. So the Abhishek Kumar that's on the call, Abhi, had just got done rearranging the menu, or the left-hand menu, the drawer, the main Meshery drawer.
Yeah, sure. I will work on it. Yeah. So it's still remaining. Let's see.
Oh, nice.
One question, like, is it gonna be the new dashboard? The current dashboard that we're gonna see, is it going to be replaced by that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to clarify. That's a great question. So Abhi had added the dash. Nitish, can you hover your mouse over the dashboard icon to make sure? Yeah, Abhi had added that as a menu item. And if you're running the current version of Meshery, if you're running it, it will have a dashboard, the ability to navigate to the dashboard there, and it'll also have it in the nav bar up on the right-hand side. And so it is not, so actually we're just going to deduplicate and remove the dashboard navigator. I'm sorry, remove the dashboard icon from the nav bar and just have it in one spot. It's actually in two spots, because if Nitish clicks on dashboard, he'll be taken to the main dashboard. If he clicks on the Meshery logo, he'll also be taken to the main dashboard. And so we're just, no is the answer to your question. The connectivity wizard, or the connection wizard, is not replacing this main dashboard. It's just that we're removing the third way of getting to the dashboard and only presenting it in the upper left-hand corner. Now, there is work to be done on the dashboard itself. So Barik has a use case for enhancing the dashboard here. On the left-hand side, one thing that needs to be done for the project is to basically take that right-hand side, the connection status, and like move those out of the way. Those are really important for having Meshery up and running and connected to all the systems. Great. But that is not really what people that are using Meshery are here to look at. They're not using Meshery to look at those connections. They're using Meshery to manage a service mesh. So there's lots of information about the service meshes that Meshery is managing. That information needs to bubble up into a UI. Is Aditya Krishna on the call? No. But there are, let's get fancy. Like this is, there's room for some fairly neat designs on charts and statistics and big numbers, red and green colors, the dashboard type stuff. So if you're into that kind of a thing, either you're into GraphQL and want to help get some APIs ready, or if you're into front-end development, or if you're into UX, just design, let's talk about the dashboard and how it gets restyled. Not restyled, I mean redone.
Are we planning to remove those multiple service meshes in the left?
Yeah, Abi, do you want to talk about that?
No, we are not gonna remove those service meshes actually, but we want to collapse those things. Like the life cycle is a parent menu, and inside that is multiple child menu that depicts different service meshes. Right. So we are gonna incorporate a feature that will collapse that life cycle item and all its children, and then we're gonna see the next parent item like configuration. That's what we are thinking about. Adding a accordion or collapsible menu is a better word for that.
Yeah, that also will work. So the idea is to keep the left pan as much compact as we can.
Yes,
And
and yeah. So adding that will also add additional benefit like showing the important information that is that really is valid and advantageous to user. So that's one thing. And yes.
Actually, since we are on the same topic, like I was thinking, like I believe someone has created an issue that this icon was not being displayed for collapsing the whole thing, and I think that is an issue that we have to think about, because right now if we are here and the user doesn't know that we can actually scroll down here and collapse it, then it might not be very intuitive in that case. So I think we can actually increase the Z index of it and keep it floating over here. That would be a better option, I guess.
Yes. Exactly. Like I have a bit longer skin. I could not see it, but yeah, that's really makes sense to have that
Yeah.
collapsible button fixed onto the bottom of the drawer so that people can just collapse it. Uh, sure.
Other comments? Yeah, so the issue that we have mentioned right now, like it seemed pretty unintuitive to a new user, so that's why we opened up the issue.
who's next?
Next up, we have Piyush. Piyush, would you like to give an update on the unit test coverage?
Okay, hi people. And let me share my screen. Okay, so current code coverage that we have right now in our Meshery CTL is not Meshery CTL, the whole project Meshery, that is 21.60%. And we can check that on CodePro's dashboard. And the files we are actually going through right now are some files in package utils and some files in CLI. Okay, so there are a lot of what should I say, issues open, but very few folks are showing up there. I don't know what's the like problem there. I think these are really interesting issues and some challenging issues also, where should I say, unit testing for Meshery CTL commands. There are not thousands, many commands that needs to be added for writing unit tests and integration tests. And if you guys are not if contributing or writing tests for your these commands are hard for you, then you can go for writing simpler unit tests for functions that have been written in utils package. I mean in this folder. So there are, I guess, more than 5 files here, and there are tons of functions written here. This file is the biggest one that has line of code, more than 700, and many functions are written here. And if you guys are not interested, or you think that writing tests for Meshery serial commands is hard, you guys can write a smaller unit test for these smaller functions. That will also contribute into this code coverage here, and which will eventually make Meshery CTL more robust and more accurate with each release. Okay. And this week's we do not have any number one unit test writer, or number one tester, unit tester, because there was no new PR merged this week. So let's hope there are at least 2 people next week on this document, which have the title as number one unit tester people. Okay. And let's move on to the second issue, that is issue with API system version. This is an URL which should return this thing, but it might not be returning this thing to you, and you might find this notification being popped up to you that says that unable to fetch Meshery version. And something like this must be happening in your dashboard, not this whole thing. So Lee actually reported this issue, and it was reported from Edge latest on Kubernetes. Okay. So let's see what I'm doing. I'm doing, you guys can see, the channel I'm using right now is Edge, and the version is latest. And I have deployed the Meshery on Kubernetes. Okay. I am able to fetch the latest version here. I'm not so sure why it is stable. It should be Edge, but it is here. Okay. If you guys are not having this here or facing issues, my recommendation would be updating your containers and deleting the site cache, because that's what happened to me when this change, like this endpoint was updated very recently. Previously it was API server version, and we replaced server with system. I also faced issues when it was released, and Meshery, I don't know, I guess 1 or 2, 3 release before, and I also got panicked. It should work. It is not working. Then I updated the containers, and eventually it was working then. Okay, so that's what needed to be addressed. Any comments?
And so, Piyush, on that, then have we identified the root cause? I mean, other than the fact.
Yeah, I myself am not sure why it was failing for sometimes. It was failing for me for at least a day when I did updated containers and deleted the site cache, and it was resolved for some reason. I don't know why. With the same release, same Meshery stable release, it was working. I am really not sure. I was also getting error 500 saying that we are not able to fetch it, or the time taken to process the request was too high, and the request was then declined, some kind of that shit. No idea, to be honest.
Yeah, there's so looking at the other client, not Meshery UI, but Meshery CTL, and running Meshery CTL version, we'll try to invoke the same API. And so I just deployed the latest Edge release, and I haven't tried to see if there's an issue here or not. And right now, from this client on that Edge release, like it was able to hit that API, and so that's interesting. I assumed that it was going to fail, but that's so I'll test from Meshery UI as well to see if that issue is still present in the Edge release.
Sure.
Thank you, Piyush. Thanks, Lee. I believe like yesterday we made a PR to that might have fixed this in the Edge release. But when I tested it as well, and it was working for me. So I think I linked the PR in the chat. Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next item, Rudraksh or Lee, would you like to talk about publishing the release notes, automatically publishing the release notes? Rudraksh, yeah.
So I'll quickly share my screen and just show what has been done to make sure that release notes are published. Basically, we were just waiting for the action to return the release notes earlier, and that was causing it to delete those release notes once a release was made. So in that case, we needed to merge a pull request which contained the release notes before creating a new release, which was a hassle. But this is Lee's brain. Lee came up with a elegant solution for this. He just said that whenever we make a release, just pull the release notes from the release notes page itself, and yeah, just put a trigger here. So we don't need to now be concerned about merging that annoying pull request, which wants a review every on every commit. And yeah, this is what the merge release notes would look like. Yeah, basically that's it.
Comments here, questions here.
Yeah, I'll do a quick just recap that, like, hey, so that everyone knows, whenever you land a commit or a PR on the project, then there's a few things that happen automatically. Even if you just open up a pull request, there's a few things that happen automatically. Depends on what code you changed and where. And so Surya Shankar is gonna be in the spotlight. And so he had recently, he's enhancing the API docs for the REST API, which is really helpful. And as he does, he's giving examples of how to use it. And because he's making changes under this path, under docs/something, that means that when the pull request is opened up, that will invoke a few specific types of workflows. One workflow is to basically build the documentation and publish it into as a temporary preview of like what the site will look like as and when his PR emerges. That's very helpful for reviewers. It's very helpful for him to check it out. There's a number of other tests, checks that go on. There's work that that's been done that you all have done to, anyway, there's a bunch of checks. Well, when this merges, there's something else that happens is there is an automatically generated set of release notes. So the current release for Meshery that anyone can go download and use is V0541. It was released a little while ago. These are the good-hearted folks that contributed to it. Well, what do you know? Ashish Tiwari, who just demoed. Oh, Barik Nurlis just demoed. Like, great. These guys are, the contributors are getting acknowledged. Good. We're seeing some of the same names from release to release. This is great. Some of these people might end up becoming maintainers at some point. And so anyway, there's a lot of notes that go on every time. So this happens just automatically so that people don't have to sit there and go back and document it. Good. That automation is very helpful. That's part of what runs in the workflow, the workflows, the CIs that kick off, the continuous integration that kicks off. And great, that means when we make the release, this page will persistently show these details. But we also publish the release notes in Meshery's documentation. If you wanted to learn about the project and you wanted to follow, like, what were the changes from one release to the next, well, you can go out to the documentation, go to releases, There's a long list of what those are. Okay, well then getting those same notes, because it's just a copy of those notes like published over here, it's yet another manual task. And so Rudraksh had been working to just automate that so that when someone clicks merge on the PR, the notes get automatically generated and they get automatically published here, which is what he was just referring to. And so that's all a thing of the past of having to be concerned with it. Like it'll just happen automatically, since automatically is a word. So. Next up, who's next?
Yeah,
So.
Hey guys, I'll just share my screen. So I will be showcasing two things today. One of them is the autosave for basically the mesh map, and the other would be node inventory. These are the two names of the features. So before, like earlier, what used to happen was we had not a very proper way to save the designs that we created. Like there used to be a small pop-up that, or small tooltip toaster that came from this bottom screen, which asked that, hey, you have made some changes, do you want to save? And there was a really bad save button, which many of you would have ignored, which would let you save the design that you have created. So that has changed. Now we have several ways in which you can save your design. So the first one is the save as button. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly create a dummy design. Yeah, and I am not sure if you guys were able to see, but what happens is as I drag anything from the designer pane over to the canvas and I drop it, a lot of things happen, and mesh map looks that, okay, there are some changes. So it triggers some methods which basically save your design automatically. Just like if you have used Google Docs before, you might find a lot of similarities in the functionality. Another thing that there is now you can rename your designs over here as you want. For example, by default, it's untitled design. Suppose if I want to name it something like my cool design, and you would be able to see that there is a, yeah, it says saving, and then it saves the whole design as. And if you go to pattern files over here, you'd be able to see that, oh, my design has been saved and it has been converted into a YAML file. If you want to go back, if you want to load the same design, it would be back over here with the name. Now, I guess maybe you like what you have done, but you want to create a copy. So you can just go click save as and write my cool design part 2. And if you click save, what it will do is it will create a copy of your design. It will show it over here. Now you can just play with this part of the design without having any issues with this design. So that sums up the autosave feature. The next feature that there is node inventory. So as a lot of people who maybe or may not be a little bit familiar with mesh map, but there's one thing that you can do on mesh map is you can drag and drop filters over nodes. So if I just go and drop on my filter over to my current Istio mesh, you'll be able to see that there is some small thing that pops below, which is basically the filter or a tooltip that's showcasing that now there is a filter dropped on this node. Now, if I have multiple filters onto a single node, what happens is you have a list of, like, you have a stacked user interface for the filters, and you can just hover over them to see which filter you are. Now, in future, what will be done is when you hover over any of these filters, your mouse pointer will basically change to this, like, and it will tell the user that it is clickable. And as soon as you click on any of these filters, you would be able to edit the configuration that you just entered. For example, if I drop another filter, you would see that there is a pop-up that comes, and this is basically the configuration of the filter. So if you want to edit that configuration, you would be able to edit that in the future. Also, right now, if you want to edit the configuration of the mesh that you just added, you can just basically left click. Oh, wait, maybe I'm not on the branch which has that feature. Anyway, so you would be able to edit that configuration as well. So this is basically your inventory, or the nodes inventory. So that's all, folks. Any feedback related to maybe user experience or anything is appreciated.
So nice. So Samir's asking some great questions, and I think he's for the most part getting those answered, but there is specific to Samir. So Samir's been giving great feedback, use cases, usage, blog posts, contributions. The guy's making the full tour, which is, and but one thing that Samir has noted and has helped the project advance is how Meshery is managing Envoy filters. And actually, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Soham, but in the inventory, the node inventory that you're showing here, the example use case that you're showing is the fact that any given service might have more than one filter, and that they could potentially be chained up.
Yeah, they can be changed up. They can be also configured. Not right now, but they will be. It's something that will be worked upon.
Samir or others, any other comments on your thoughts, comments?
No, as of now, but I would like to see this UI in my Meshery. So whenever
ask no more. I'm there's gents, we should go do that, because Samir, it will not work entirely, but there are certain aspects that will work, and
okay,
and it will only take a minute for the contributors who are working on it to describe what's broken, so that you don't get frustrated. But the rest is like, yeah, it's time to start poking at it.
Okay, so one thing is, does it shows the ISTO, let's say the mesh for ISTO, we have virtual services, and also we have services in Kubernetes. So does this pattern will show both the things, or because, if one of these things breaks, so whole things breaks?
I didn't get the question though.
Basically, he's like, ultimately, yes is the answer. I don't know in this very moment that the way that you. So the question is, hey, Samir is saying, well, this is great. I can configure my service mesh, but also I'm configuring my service mesh in context of a larger Kubernetes deployment, and so there are sort of just Kubernetes native constructs, like a service, just a Kubernetes service, a Kubernetes deployment, a Kubernetes daemon set, like there's a list of those constructs. Can those be represented as well? Because they have bearing on, on like an ingress controller. Can I visualize and show that here? Because it's part of my architecture, it's part of how my application works. So
Yeah,
Yes.
so why I'm telling, like the services which we are seeing here, like is that a virtual service or is that a Kubernetes service? Like that always kind of confuses me.
So I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, so you mean this with this one, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so this is a virtual service, the former one, if I'm not wrong.
For Istio.
Yeah. So, Samir, actually, you can see in so this is actually categorized into Istio components, and there's this virtual service. So this is actually the Istio's virtual service. We can be like we have some annotations which actually differ. If in case in future someone else also starts using virtual service as a construct's name, even then you will have a nice categorization.
Okay.
So this is
okay.
because it's under Istio components, it's actually Istio's virtual service.
And also these triangles will be different for different component, right?
Yeah, they will definitely change. These are
okay.
because of the design change. The design is not yet decided because we are focusing more on functionality, and design can always be discussed.
Oh, okay. That is why maybe I was getting, because all look same.
Yeah.
No problem.
Any other questions? Lee, would you like to conclude the meeting by calling this up?
Yeah, I guess there's just two quick items. One is actually Samir, there are users that are deploying Meshery that.
Okay.
Yeah, like that. Hopefully that's self-explanatory, but yeah, if you're inclined or if you have, like, we might want to publish some examples on the Discuss forum or.
Yes.
The last item is that, well, is that there's a bug going on that's preventing, I don't believe it's a bug in MeshSync necessarily, maybe, but it's preventing MeshSync from working, which means a large portion of Meshery itself doesn't necessarily work. So we do need to keep it, we do need to give attention to this and work through it. We need to hammer it out. So we can't do that on this call, but I wanted to highlight the fact that I'll put the bug number in there. It might be, we should make sure that we get the latest error that's being seen into that bug. I'm not convinced that it's not a permission issue.
From Helm also we are getting this kind of like the Meshery sync is not installed.
It is not. Okay. Can you say a little bit more? Does MeshSync start?
So once we download, like, once we install it with like help chart, so all the applications or all the components get installed. In fact, the operator also get installed. But when we start the Meshery server, MeshSync doesn't get installed in the namespace. So after I just toggle the button to operator, make it on, still it doesn't.
And you double checked inside of the Meshery namespace?
Yes, inside Meshery namespace, it doesn't come up. So only the service mesh adapters and the operator is there. So Meshery sync is not getting phased.
Okay, that's helpful. That's,
but I remember like Abhishek has given me a Helm chart of some zip file last time. That time it did work with those Helm installation, but when I do it via the guide which has been there in the website to test, it doesn't work.
That could be, yeah, that's very good information. But if you still have a copy of that chart, the one that was working previously, it'd be good for us to take a look at the difference.
Yes, I will give that chart.
Okay. Yeah, here, I'll send you the issue as well so that you can maybe load it there.
But let
That's
me
great.
see if Slack has the memory to remember that one.
Other than that, that's all that I had.
Thank you guys. As always, we are late. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next week on the Meshery call. And we have a couple of other calls tomorrow. So if you are interested in working on service mesh performance, we have a community meeting tomorrow. And Anshuman, there is a newcomers meeting that's happening on Thursday, so you can join that as well to get oriented in the community. So thank you all for joining.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.